Great.
Ah,
Hi
there you go.
everyone. Yeah, I think there we go. We are live. Great. Thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm Jace from Creatives at Work. So welcome to another session of our freelancing during COVID-19. We hope through sharing sessions like this, it will bring the community together and we can actually emerge stronger and better as a community. In our last few sessions, we focused very much on what we do during the circuit breaker, right? How can we better market ourselves? How can we actually look for new ways of doing what we love to do, right? Now, today, we are actually 2 weeks into our phase one, right? Where slowly, business operations in Singapore are returning to normal, right? And it has also brought some of us back to work in the video production space, of course, with strict safety measures. And today, this session was specially created to talk about the experience that we had in the past week, right? As more and more of us are getting ready to go back to the ground and start filming, right? So I would like to invite you to join us in the discussion as well by providing the comment below and share your own experience or ask questions, right? We may not have all the answer, but would like to know what are some of the questions that you have in mind and what are some of the challenges that you face, right, in your own shoot so that we can actually learn and see how we can actually do it better. And for today, I'm very happy to invite Wei J to join us for today's sessions. Wei J, you want to say hi?
Hello, I'm AJ, the bird
Right.
pictures.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Wei J, for joining us. Maybe Wei J,
No, my pleasure.
you like to share with us a little bit more about yourself and probably the type of productions that Bird Picture is actually working on right now.
Sure. So my name's AJ. I'm a producer at Bird Pictures. We're basically a film and TV production company, and we've done 360 VR, typical commercial, corporate TV kind of productions. We are also in the business of co-investing, co-producing, and kind of developing our own features. Uh, yeah, production support, all that kind of stuff.
Great. Thank you so much, Wei J. So we have actually invited Wei J to join us today because as we all know, we as we move back into so-called the new normal, right? Looking at how COVID has actually changed the whole world, digitized everything that we do, that we know, and transform everything. So I think in terms of film production, I think it's also time where we actually look at different solutions, different technology to help us to do our things better. So we have actually conducted our first shooting about 2 days ago on the ground. So I'm going to share a bit about Creative at Work's experience, and then after that, I will invite Wei J to share a little bit more about their experience as well, and also the new technology or system or solutions that they can provide. Right, to help us to ensure that we meet all the safety measures as required by so-called by the Singapore government. I'm sure by now all of you probably have heard about or have already seen the advisory that has been issued by IMDA. So we will advise that that is a very important document before you go to shoot. Please look through. Right. So what we have done with our crew for the pre-shoot day before you go to shoot, you has to actually make sure that there's a list of things that you need to do before you actually go into the shoot. This is just to ensure the safety of yourself and as well as of the crew as well. So one of the most important thing that we have done is actually to ensure a thorough recce of the filming locations, right? Ensure there's enough space for everyone to work on, and also have to actually be prepared to do the destinations of different zone, right? So that you actually restrict the movement of the crew, right, into the non-designated area. So this is actually one thing that's very important, right? You have to make sure that you have enough space to designate for meals, for the talent, for your crew, as well as for other services that goes with it as well. What we have done is we try to reduce the crew size. So this is important. So we will have a discussion with the directors to actually ensure that we only restrict it to the necessary crew, right? So that we actually reduce the number of people on set, right? we will also designate, right, a safety officer. And this is important, right, because you want to ensure that there's someone on the set who can actually actively look out to ensure that you actually meet all the safety measurements, right, rather than, for everybody to go about doing their own things and then nobody actually, and then you unknowingly actually kind of, didn't keep to the so-called the requirements, right? Then, of course, safe entry code, as we all know, and then do prepare health declaration form as well, right? One of the key thing is now your cost sheet actually has to have more details compared to the past, right? Make sure that you also include the different zone so that people know, where are the different places being set up, and also collect as much details as you can for the people on set, and make sure that only people who are authorized are on set, right? There's no unauthorized working. Right, as producers, please ensure that you have the mask, thermometer, sanitizer, for the crew and people on the set, right? What we have done is we actually send the IMDA advisory notes, right, to everyone, right, and ask them to actually go through the safety measures. So these are the list of things that I think now, if you are going back to shoot under phase one, you need to actively ensure that this has been done so that you actually protect everyone on set. So I'm not sure, Vijay, for on your side, is there anything additional that you actually add on to all this preparation before going down to shoot?
I guess right now, it's pretty much standardized with the IMDA guidelines also. But I guess on top of what you mentioned, it's also about in pre-pro, you want to do your location recce's more like with Google Street View, and then when you have your tech recce's, you try to keep it like lean, not so many people attending, not everybody in the same car, like carpooling is not really that feasible these days lah. Um, and yeah, I think in general the guidelines are very comprehensive. They've been worked on by a lot of different people in the industry across departments also. So I think there's been a lot of thought put into curating the full list, because there's a mandatory guidelines, and there's also the longer comprehensive suggestions that you can take to tweak your production. And I think with every production is gonna be different what would apply also lah. So producers have to look at their own project requirements and determine which additional guidelines they need to bring in for themselves and for the crew safety and everything.
That's right. So on top of that, Vijay, we understand that other than the physical things that we can do, right, or prepare before the shoots, actually Bird Picture actually has some solutions that the production house can actually consider to actually also help to streamline some of the processes, right, so that it actually will ensure some of the measurements being done much more accurately.
Yeah, I think if we are gonna be talking about do you mean like a remote viewing, like how you can okay, solutions like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess with remote viewing, okay, imagine you have a scenario where you have a company from Australia and they want to shoot like their office in Singapore or something. So their director is based in Australia, their clients are all based in Australia, but the shoot has to happen in Singapore. So obviously this time like they're not going to be able to come over here and like shoot with a local team. So instead, a local team needs to run everything, but they still have to kind of be able to watch everything as it's happening. So typically with this kind of thing, like if you don't have really strict requirements, you can probably just get a feed from your camera and like connect it to a computer or laptop with wired internet and like just stream it over some kind of video conferencing software and you're done lah. But I think if your production is gonna need more features and more functionality from your solution, Bird Lighting House also has a QTech system where it's basically a solution for a lot of video assist professionals around the world. It's it's a really comprehensive suite of solutions that can be used by different productions of different sizes lah. So essentially, in a nutshell, maybe I can just share a small diagram of what QTech, what some of the features of QTech could be lah.
Sure.
Yeah. So one great thing about Qtik is that it can allow for very useful and functional remote viewing. So essentially, like, we can just like take a look at a sample, like kind of shoot workflow that we can augment with Qtik. Basically, you have your live cameras. Maybe it's one camera, or maybe it's two cameras, or maybe up to four cameras lah. But in any case, the feeds from all these cameras can be either wirelessly or wired feed to a Qtik station, where essentially you can have instant record and playback without disrupting whatever's going on set. So
Mm,
and as these feeds are coming into the Qtik system, we can also
mm,
like simultaneously generate proxies in various flavors of ProRes. So from your ProRes proxies to ProRes LT to all the way to 444, as well as H.264 proxies, depending on what you need.
mm,
And so that you can immediately already you can like offload this into a drive and like send it for like offline edit in a very fast manner lah. But on top
mm,
of that, it can also allow for real-time compositing. So this could be like compositing things like your client's logo on the image, so that your client is already knows what it's gonna look like.
mm,
Or it can even have real-time green screen chroma key. So your green screen on the monitor is already comped out with what is going to replace the green screen later on. So it's a very rough comp. Obviously, you're gonna need to do a proper comp after the shoot, but
mm,
this allows you to view everything in real time and have your feedback or whatever key decisions coming from your VFX or your director lah. It also allows you to make very simple on-set edits from which you can generate an EDL that you can later on send to post, so that your assembly process is already kind of you've already started on that assembly, and you can very quickly like move along your post workflow as normal lah. And then on top of that, the Qtik operator can help to add metadata to your footage, log comments from the directors, which takes are good, which takes are NGs, and then from this you can generate a PDF report that goes to post as well.
mm,
So you don't have your traditional like PA like logging or something, or like your third AD
mm,
just writing down on like loose sheets of paper that might get lost and stuff like that lah.
mm,
And on top of
mm,
that, right, this Qtik also allows is for bidirectional talkback to and from one Qtik monitor device. And for Qtik monitor, we'll talk about that later on as we move down this diagram. But what this means is that basically from the Qtik station, you can talk to one selected Qtik monitor device, and that
mm,
Qtik monitor can talk back to this station. So what this might be useful for would be if a director is offset.
mm,
Like now you need to position all your different zones apart from each other. And in
yep,
some locations, this might mean that where you are shooting, like the actual set, is a bit further away from Video Village. So
mm,
maybe your Qtik station could be just positioned outside of set, or maybe just next to the AD or whoever is on set, who can
mm,
hear additional like feedback from a key decision maker lah, essentially. So you can have
mm,
that talk back to and fro. And what basically now we can get into why Qtik is really powerful is because Qtik allows for a few different things. These are just some of the functionalities, but and it can do a lot more. Just that these are a bit more relevant to what we're talking about lah.
mm,
So basically with Qtik, right, that's just a basic flavor of it. It lets you have up to 16 Apple devices, either on iOS, Mac OS, or Apple TV. Like all of these devices can be turned into a dedicated Qtik monitor, where you can either have like a multi screen view, or maybe just a full screen layout to kind of either focus on one camera or kind of look at two cameras side by side. But that's
mm,
it's not just like about viewing two cameras. You can also use one input to be sort of like a playback. So
mm,
this could be useful for things like you're comparing two different playbacks, or you wanna like while you're shooting something live, you wanna also be playing back the previous take. So
mm,
all of these things, depending on what your director wants or what your project requirements are, can be done lah. So basically from the camera goes into your QTake, and then from QTake you can feed it out to either like your traditional Video Village monitors. That like let's say one camera, one monitor, or maybe one monitor is for the camera live feed, and then one monitor is for like the playback, for example. Yeah,
Mm.
depending on how many cameras you have, depending on how many monitors you want to set up. And then on top of that, it can also allow the remote viewing. So let's say
Mm.
you have one set area and like maybe like four satellite areas where like maybe a head of department has to wait it like outside the set, and he cannot be like physically on set to like affect make any changes. They can still have like an iPad with them, and they can
Mm.
still watch the actual live feed from the camera while their crew, that maybe their props master or maybe their lighting man, their best boy, they're making their adjustments lah.
Mm.
Yeah, so I think what this like even the basic flavor of QTake, it allows you to have this very powerful ability to have up to 16 devices connected. So
Mm.
you're not limited to the number of like physical 24-inch clunky monitors anymore,
Mm.
and
Mm.
you can have like it's easier to set up the monitors because they're just
Mm.
iPads or iPhones
Mm.
or something like that.
Mm. Mm.
And
Mm.
so that's just a local kind of connection, right? But if let's say you have clients from overseas, like we mentioned just now, you can actually give them, basically you just get their email address and then you add them to a list of authorized people, and they just need to download the QTech Monitor app, and they are able to log in to access what you see here in remote viewing already. So over
Mm.
here, remote viewing, this is what your clients from overseas could actually be able to see lah. Um, and then if you want, you can enable the talkback to this QTech monitor, which is gonna let them send their feedback live as the shoot is going on. They can request the operator to play back a certain take, and they're able to give their comments directly to the QTech operator. And with QTech Cloud, right? You've got to buy the QTech Cloud data, um, but the QTech Cloud, the great thing about it is, and that is completely different from any sort of video conferencing software like Zoom or Skype, is that there is like extremely low latency. It's in a
Mm.
matter of a few frames. Like the latency and the lag is a matter of a few frames. So everything is just really as it's going on, and the encryption is like Hollywood grade. So like if you're shooting anything sensitive, you're covered there as well lah.
Mm.
And if you even have a QTech server license, it cannot be just like 16 devices. It can go up to
Mm.
160. So you can
Mm.
imagine that like that this could enable a lot of different users for a lot of different use cases lah.
Mm.
And then the
Mm.
last thing with a Qtech server license purchase is that one of the other great things it can enable is remote collaboration, which is basically you can use a Qtech server to view and download all of the recorded proxies and access all the metadata that your VTR or your video assist or Qtech operator has already enabled. And then you can just download these proxies and the data and the notes without even affecting what's going on set. And while that's happening, while the shoot's happening, you can already get started with your post. So
Mm.
this is going to help us when we're editing remotely, when we are editing outside of our country, and a lot of other different use cases. And it's really just up to your imagination and your project
Mm.
requirements.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah, thank you so
yeah,
much, Vijay, for sharing. I mean, that is really a very suitable solutions, especially at a time like this, right? I mean, especially at a time like this where we have to limit the number of people that we have on set, right? And then everybody has to maintain safe distancing. Not in the early days where everybody crowd around the monitors and things like that. So I think a solution like this would definitely add a lot of value. I just want to find out, is this something that because it seems like the setup can be very big, right? But what if the setup is only for a smaller budget, shoot, or like it's for a smaller size? Will this system still make sense for smaller crew in that sense?
Well, okay. I mean, for a smaller budget, it still depends on what your project actually requires, right? Like, do you have a client or a director who is physically based out of your country and like legally cannot travel to your location of shoot? And if the answer to that is no, of course there are a few different ways you can approach this without having to like purchase data from Qtik or like purchase a Qtik server license. Even with the base flavor of Qtik, you are able to enable the 16 devices already. And maybe you can ask different HODs to bring like an iOS device, or you can just get a bunch of like iPads to kind of use as these Qtik monitors. Um, but even if let's say you have a like lower budget shoot where but your client is based overseas or your director is based overseas, you still can do a solution that's simpler than Qtik. You don't need a Qtik system, you don't need a Qtik operator. All you need is like maybe from your camera you get an SDI to USB kind of converter to make the camera a webcam source in your laptop, and then you can already just enable this and in your video conferencing software of choice you can enable this source to be your picture, and you're already video conferencing with the director lah. So that's
Mm,
already a very like no frills kind of setup. You will have
mm,
latency, you will have connection issues sometimes. The servers are not necessarily dedicated, so
yeah.
you might have some kind of frame drops and here and there. But if you're looking for a bare bones kind of solution, you have that as well. So
Mm,
I think like the whole concept of remote viewing is not limited to like higher budget productions lah. Any kind of
mm,
budget you can adapt a situation to fit it lah. But I
mm,
think um what Qtech is gonna be great for is while you are like kind of like you are able to have more monitors easily. So like
mm,
you mentioned the issue of people crowding around us like a single monitor, right? Now you can just give everybody their own monitor lah. Like up to how
mm,
many iOS devices you have and up to like 16 devices, right?
mm,
So hair and makeup they can have one iPad to look at to like kind of just make sure the conti is right. You can even use a Qtech monitor to screenshot like as and when it's going. So
mm,
like people like Conti, people like like hair, makeup, wardrobe, they can all like get screenshots for their own Conti purposes. There are a lot of different users that we probably don't have enough time to go in depth about
mm,
that
mm,
like different productions could take advantage of. Like if you
mm,
consider a long form drama, like someone who's working on wardrobe would find the ability to like screenshot easily while still monitoring everything to be quite useful, because like maybe
mm,
they can reference back to this screenshot easily like when they're shooting the next episode 2 weeks later. I don't know,
mm,
different users here and there lah.
mm.
Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah.
Mm.
So, in terms of operating, let's say if in terms of operating the full suite of what Qtix can do, right? Allow remote viewing, remote collaborations, so do you need a dedicated operator to be able to operate, right, the different so-called functions of Qtix?
Yes. So with QTech, right, we will definitely not recommend somebody to double up. Like if
Mm,
you ask your DIT to be the QTech operator while it's a very hectic shoot when you're shooting like two cameras, then you're making a lot of takes, then the DIT needs to run up and down and stuff like that. Um, like it's gonna be very hard for them to be able to operate QTech and take advantage of all the features like the best they can lah. And typically, even if you have one dedicated QTech operator, sometimes you might also find it good to have like additional people who may have a sub role of being able to make sure the connections are good, like just like your VTR, just like your cam grade, who make sure that like when the monitor feed goes down, like you go and fix it.
mm,
You have like additional people like this available to kind of troubleshoot things that might come up lah.
mm.
Yeah.
Mm, right. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
Mm.
But is it a skill set that easily can be picked up, or you need to go and attend courses or actually like a briefing session with your team in order to know how to operate the system?
Okay, so on the QTech website itself, it says that it's
Mm,
a very easy system to learn lah. But
Mm.
what you'll find is that there, because of how many, like how much functionality there is, uh, I think you'll need some sort of like experience, or like experience is gonna do wonders to how much you can do with the system. Like
Mm.
if you have no experience with it but you're tech savvy, I'm pretty sure you can like spend a day with it and figure out how to get it running and like with a decent amount of functionality lah. But if let's say you want to really exploit every single thing available
Mm.
to like made available via the system, then you
Mm.
would probably just have to look for an experienced QTech operator, which
Mm.
can come with our QTech system.
Mm.
Or you just need to like spend some time figuring it out, like trial and error here and there. But of
Mm.
course, like our team is always happy to guide. If let's say you find that hiring an operator from us is like out of your budget or something like that, lah.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Right, sure.
But I
And
mean, it's supposed to be easy to learn, lah.
yeah, I see. It's supposed to
Uh,
be, yeah,
yeah.
intuitive like in that sense, right? If you
But
know how to
but
operate.
yeah, but they're trying to sell you something, so they will tell you that it's easy to learn.
Right. I see.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. Great. Yeah, thanks for sharing. I think that brought us to the second part of it, right? I mean, in terms of, on the actual day, what are some of the things that you should look out for, right, when you go for a shoot to ensure that, you don't actually infringe on any of the so-called requirements, right? Having a solution in place, like what Wei Jie has just now shared with us about QTICs, is one of the way that we can consider, so that we minimize the number of people at one place, right? And also allow, certain things to be done remotely, right? And still achieve the quality that we all want. For us, right, what we have actually put in place for our on the actual shoot day is we will ensure that the safety officer will have to conduct a briefing sessions for every of the production crew on set right prior to the shoot, so that everybody is aware, right, where are the designated area, what's going to happen for the rest of the day, and of course for them to report anything that, if they're unwell and things like that, right. And of course, the safety officer on the day will have to ensure that all crew complete the safe entry as well as their health declaration, which is important, right? Anyone who is sick or unwell, please don't let them continue. Ask them to go back and rest, right? During the shoot as well, please ensure that only authorized persons are present, right? Again, the thing about safe distancing need to be ensured at all times. Masks should be on at all times as well. Create designated area, as Wei Jie has also shared, right, for different purposes, right? Designate different people to different area, right? Meals as well can only be taken at designated place, and preferably if you have, more people, try to stagger the lunch hour. Right. So with that, then Wei Jie, do you have anything to add on, like on the actual production day? What else, should the producers or the safety officer look out for to actually ensure that all the requirements are being met and not being overlooked by anyone on the set?
I think it's I mean, like the obvious answer to that would be to kind of look at the list of guidelines that you've put together from both the IMDA guidelines as well as safety measures that will be relevant for your set. So you have to like tick them all off like a checklist. But the next other thing would be to kind of just emphasize common sense, like, just make sure that like everybody who's supposed to be keeping a distance are keeping a distance, and if they are not able to keep a distance, like that they've got the right protective equipment, and yeah, that every single step, like safety step that can be
Mm,
taken is taken off. Like,
mm,
just make sure that before makeup starts their work, or if the talent is not able to do their own makeup, you make sure that before your makeup artist starts their work on your talent, that they go and wash their hands and just like perform all like the different steps of safety
mm,
steps that they can take before they touch somebody's face.
mm,
Yeah.
right. So we have actually have one interesting question, right? So I'm not sure if you have any thought about that. So basically, I think one of the question or comments is that will the authorities really conduct checks on the filming set? Have you heard anyone that has shared with you that, oh, somebody came down to shoot to check on their production sets?
I mean, I think I think the first problem area obviously would be members of the public, because
Mm,
even before COVID and the circuit breaker, like members of the public have already been very easily alarmed by like shoots lah.
mm,
Either alarmed or intrigued by us.
mm,
So if you're shooting in a very public location,
mm,
I obviously like expect to be checked on whether you're following the right measure, like guidelines lah. And
mm,
if you're shooting in a public location, even if you're following all the guidelines, I think you have to make a provision for your production that uh, even if you're following all the rules, you got all the
mm,
permits, the location's fine with you. Somebody has complained and an enforcement officer arrives and he doesn't really know what you're doing. Prepare to have some sort of disruption to your production lah.
mm,
And
mm,
that's for a very public area, right? But if
mm,
you're shooting in a studio and like you don't have a bunch of people like loitering outside your studio, like not wearing masks and like
mm,
very close to each other, like so that other people can like see that happening and complain, then I think it's very unlikely that you're gonna have people knocking on your door and checking lah.
mm,
That being
mm,
said, there are some industrial buildings around that are being like checked on by MOM and stuff
mm,
quite frequently. So if your studio is in there and like you have the experience of like MOM coming to your door and checking, then obviously like that might happen lah. But
mm.
at the end of the day, if you're already following all the guidelines, which are not
Yep.
difficult to follow, I don't think you have a real concern lah. You just have like be prepared for to be able to answer whatever questions are thrown your way lah. Which is
Yeah, I also
yeah.
agree. Yeah,
Mm,
I think that's great, right? I agree with you, Vijay. I think some of the, or rather the requirements, right, are not something that is like new, right? In fact, the last 2 months, like safe distancing, wash your hand, right, sanitize your hand, you know, wear your mask, things like that are actually already being carried out in our daily life, right? So I think now it's just a matter of taking a step further, right, to just ensure that in our own place we also continue with all this, right, so as to protect ourselves and protect the crew as well. So to answer just now, I think it's Benji's question is really that, I think irregardless of whether check will be conducted, I think we should at all times, right, ensure that all the requirements, or adhere to all the requirements. This is also for the good of everyone as well. We want the crew to feel safe. We want the talent to feel safe as well, right? And of course, the last thing is we don't want, anything to happen and then everything cannot have to stop, right? So I think that's the best
yeah,
way forward. Just, yeah, just comply it. Anyway, this is phase one, right? Hopefully things will pass very soon and we can all go back, to our normal days. Yeah.
yeah.
So sorry, go ahead, Vijay. Sorry.
No, I think just to add on to what you said, I think if
Mm,
if like anybody gets COVID on a production set, it's not just gonna be your production that's affected lah. I think it's
mm,
gonna be quite likely that the rules are tightened for us and we're
mm.
gonna face even more restrictions to what we can and cannot do lah.
Mm, that's
Mm.
right. Actually, another thing that I also want to share, with our audiences as well is because we also get a lot of inquiry from freelancers. Now that phase one, the production company can go back to film, right? But I also want to, share with them, right, that for freelancers, technically, how business can resume because of there are certain SSIC codes that has actually already been identified. So we cannot assume that all companies, right, are allowed to engage in filming activities in that sense, right? So you must ensure that the company that hire you are actually, approved, right, by the authority to go back to filming. And the best way to do that, or the way to ascertain that, is actually through the SSIC code, because I think it was indicated quite clearly in the advisory as well. Like, SSIC code starting with 59, blah, 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 things like that are only those companies are allowed to go back to film. So this is just one thing for the freelancers to take note if they're just wondering, whether the hirer are authorized to go back to shoot or not. Okay, thank you so much for sharing, Vijay. I think we have one question for you, right, pertaining to the QTIC system. So basically, I think the question is, this remote viewing workflow, will it still be a norm even after this whole thing blows over? And technology aside, how adaptable do you think crew in Asia can adapt to this workflow? Yeah, I think we were just talking about this, right? How many people are actually already starting to use this system already in Singapore?
Hmm. Okay, I think there are a few aspects to this. Like remote viewing,
Mm,
right? Is something that's relevant even if we don't have to like physically distance ourselves. Let's just say you have a director in the US, which actually happened for one of our corporate interview shoots back
mm,
in like January or something, where the director was in the US because it was a US based company. They had a US advertising agency and a US director, and they hired some DP to come and fly in here to shoot with a local team. But for the director, we had to use some sort of like teleprompter device and feed
mm,
the visual back to the director, and then the director's face would appear in the teleprompter of the camera. So the interviewee would be exactly like talking like like just eye contact with the director while facing the camera. So this is already like one use case of
mm,
remote viewing that I think is relevant if let's say somebody like some company from Australia wants to shoot the opening of their Singapore office, right?
mm,
But like they are not gonna like maybe they can't fly down the director or their big boss to like kind of oversee everything. So remote viewing is already like a very useful kind of capability lah, which
mm,
doesn't have to be just via Qtech. It can be via like more barebone solution like I mentioned earlier lah. And in terms of like how adaptable do you think crews can be to adapt to this workflow? I think very adaptable because um, with like you just cross the causeway, right? And like a lot of the productions are already using Qtech. So and in Malaysia you have a dedicated role called video assist or VTR, right?
mm,
Where like someone is there dedicated to just make sure like the feed is going to the recorder and everything is going right and like the playback is good, the monitor feeds are up. Like you have a dedicated person there like looking at all these things. And this is not just in Malaysia, like different
mm,
countries in Asia, Thailand, Vietnam, they all have like similar sorts of roles. And Qtech is just basically a very elegant solution to allow
mm,
professionals like that, like video assist professionals like that, to kind of just like step up the capabilities that shoot can like rely on lah
mm,
or tap on.
mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, right. Yeah. So I think with the new norm being developed right now as we are working, right? Due to COVID, a lot of new measurements will probably put in place. But as we all know, remote collaboration, remote working will probably be here for a time. So this is actually a great solutions that we can actually look at. I think technology is just the way to go. We must as creative individual or as media professionals freelancers, I think to be adaptable and to actually look at new to be or rather to adopt a more open mind, right, to try to use technology to help us to achieve better things so that we can actually focus on our energy on doing creative stuff, right, and not to worry about too much other lapses and all this. So it is great that today we have such technology around, and for all of us out there who has the budget and who is actually trying out new things, then this is actually one of the solutions that we can actually think about to help to equip us in terms of ensuring that that the function, the remote viewing, remote collaboration is something that we can all work together, right? But thank you so much, Wei Jay, for sharing with us, right? And also thank you so much, audience, for staying with us. I hope you find the session useful. So for now, we will wrap up tonight, and we hope to see you soon. If you'd like to get in touch with us, please follow us on our Facebook, Instagram, or even our LinkedIn. We also have podcast resources for freelancers called the Freelance Creative Exchange. It's available on YouTube and all podcast platforms from iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, right to Stitches. So like us and subscribe to our channel. So with this, I wish you all the best, right? Thank you, AJ, once again for joining us this evening, right?
Sure, my
And
pleasure.
thank you. So with that, I wish you all the best and hope to see you soon. Bye bye.
Bye. Good luck.